Necina. I live at 82 East Harbine Avenue, Xenia, Ohio. I was born in Chardon, Ohio, and in 1924. And my mother gave birth to me at their home in Chardon, Ohio. That way, we moved to Aurora, Ohio, and from that point I went through school and graduated and everything from that particular town. This way was Aurora, Ohio, and Portage County, Ohio. And at the time at Portage County, why we were a little farming area.
It was the combat engineers. Was it 202nd, you said?
Yeah.
202nd.
Yeah, that was the division in it was an infantry. That was a division of combat engineers within this corps that existed, and the whole corps was out of Camp Pendleton, Virginia, I believe it is.
Your date drafted? Your first date that you were drafted in? What was that?
February 23rd of 1943. When the draft was on this way, why the draft board always needed draftees to come in this way, so we had to register as soon as you turned 18, and upon turning 18, which was in October, in February I was already inducted into the service, so it shows you how far back we were behind. And I actually signed up to be in the Navy, but it turned out at the last minute when they examined me, they found out that they said my eyes didn't qualify, and yet I only had a 20/50 thing, in which is not very much at all. But from there they stamped me going into the Army, and after that, when I got into the Army, I was transferred for basic training in Camp Shelby, Mississippi, and we was down there for basic training and whatnot. And while I was at basic training, why, of course, we'd have, after your 6 months or 6 weeks, why you had could take a leave this way, because most of us were young soldiers, and we were pretty well homesick now, not used to being away from home.
And what was your basic training location?
Well, I was trained in Camp Shelby, Mississippi. See, everything in Camp Shelby was training that we was basically part of an artillery camp there. And so we were doing quite a bit with artillery shells this way, as far as booby trapping and disarming them and whatnot this way. But our basic training there was to get the men into shape so as that they would be indoctrinated, so as to, when an officer spoke, you jumped. And that's the whole idea, to make sure that everybody is accepting orders and putting that type of thing in. Mm-hmm. And that was for basic training and whatnot. And they had canceled our move at Camp Shelby, and they had, overnight, they picked our convoy, and we went all the way up to Massachusetts and Connecticut up there, and there we boarded ship. And then on the 8th of January, 8th of October, I was sailing across the Atlantic, and we were leaving for parts unknown then. So our actual time was from the 23rd of February to the 8th of October, basically the only time that was in the service there.
Did you have any interest before the
No.
draft?
No, never did. Not any interest at all. I was, as I say, I was drafted.
Yeah.
Drafted, went into it, and then when you're drafted, well, of course, you make the best what you can.
Yeah. What was your first duty station?
Well, I guess you couldn't say that Camp Shelby, because Camp Shelby is where our basic training was, and then from there we went up into Northern Ireland, and that's where we went into Portadown, Ireland, and that's where our basic address, I guess you'd say, was, where we were doing all our basic training and learning how to build the pontoon bailies and all these different bridges and whatnot, doing all that we did. But that was in Northern Ireland, Portadown, and that way.
So during your service overseas, what was your main way of passing time? How did you, when you were nervous or scared or bored, how would you pass the time usually?
Now, this you mean, what, you're in combat now? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Well, in combat, why, you actually took a break whenever you could take a break. Because other than that, why, you may be up and doing some work this way and never have a break for maybe 15, 20 hours, and then you're so exhausted you just fall asleep. That's so, but that's, you take you take it as it appears, I guess, as it comes. This way you take the situation as it involves. Of course, if you were moving across, why, you just in infantry tactics or bridge building and whatnot this way, they usually had a slit trench, and you did all your business there, and you covered it up and you went out again that way. But if you was actually in movement, whatnot, the outfit and so on like that, why, you did it whatever you could. And the other, as far as sleeping, you slept whenever you could. Actually, on October 8th, why, I was sailing across the Atlantic Ocean for destinations unknown, because it was in a great big troop convoy going across there. But we landed in Liverpool and then got on a train and transferred the train and went all the way up into Scotland, and from Scotland went across to Northern Ireland, and that's where we were stationed for the time being, because we went into Northern Ireland for the simple reason that we didn't have any maneuvers yet, and so we were being taught maneuvers, and I was supposed to be a machine gunner this way, and I had never fired a machine gun yet, and yet I was listed in there labeled as a machine gunner. And here it turned out we went through all that basic training again, and it was still never qualified to have this, but yet when we was in France, why, I did assign me duty to the 50 caliber machine gun, which was for turret operated off of a truck, and that was the first time that I had any physical doings with the 50 caliber this way. But actually I did no firing. So when we were in Northern Ireland, why our job was to, after we were through with the maneuvers, we were building parachute drying sheds for our aircraft, for the big bombers and whatnot, for their pilots when they got their parachutes all wet this way. And these were the big drying sheds that we had built for these. But one early morning, why they noticed us all up on trucks and went down to the boat. And we went down into East Liverpool and went across to Southampton. And there we went to bivouac again in the area, and bang, this is where it turned out to be, unbeknown at the time, why it was the Normandy invasion. And needless to say, why we were all scared to death of the thing when I was going on this way. And in the meantime, when our outfit went across, why, as I said before, about our particular outfit, I probably should describe what the combat engineers was designated for. And to go back on this, why, when we were indoctrinated into the service, we were in what they call the combat engineers, but it was the 5th Corps. And the 5th Corps is nothing but combat engineers, and the reason being that they found whenever there was a physical contact with enemy this way, there was usually some cases where they needed extra men and they just didn't have them. And basically the extra men that they needed were usually combat engineers. And so either they had some bridges had been blown up and they had to build them and there weren't enough engineers for this, or they had some mines that would be trapped all along a city or a railroad, and it just all in all. But anyway, these engineers were designed for any infantry tactics they needed, artillery, anyway, and when they would need it, they wouldn't send out as a whole complete unit like the 202 engineers. They would go along and say that would they need an outfit of maybe a platoon of men, which would be 3 squads, and then they would disperse them to maybe the 35th Division, but then maybe the next day there would be the 6th Division would need some infantry that way. But that's exactly all the combat engineers was doing at that particular time. And when we went across in Normandy invasion, why I wasn't in the first assault in the way this way, because they were holding us back this way. And after I got onto the beaches this way, why our outfit I lost because we couldn't find the outfit anywhere. Well, it turned out that our outfit went across, and the main branch of the outfit was still back on the ships, waiting to come across. But we was already ashore this way, and so we would dig in and waited, and finally they made contact with us that way. But we never was actually in the actual invasion because our outfit was gone. We didn't know where the outfit was. But needless to say, after we got to the shore on beachheads, everything established and whatnot, and we had quite a bit of trouble with German aircraft, planes doing strafing and bombing and whatnot this way, and so they would have. I was machine gunner, as I told you, and be on a 30 caliber night patrol, but guard, and here are these German Me-109 aircrafts. Why they come flying through this way, but what they were doing, they'd have a leader plane go through real low this way, and then he would be drawing fire from our troops on the plane, and then they would be able to spot where the firing is coming from the plane coming behind this way, and then just bomb the hell out of them this way. And this one night when we was there, they came through with us, and my buddy was on the other side of the field there, and he says, "Here they come down, let's give them a hell." And I said, "Too far for me." And this guy, he opened up on them, and that's exactly what the Germans wanted. And the German aircraft come through, and boy, they strafed all down through there and dropped the bombs this way. And it actually killed our lieutenant colonel on the bunch that way. But after that, they had no more night fire machine guns that way. And we made a trip then going into Brest, and we got up in there, and it was the idea there was only a platoon of us men there, and of the platoon they were still split up with 2 soldiers and a jeep driver and a counterintelligence man, and we were looking for booby traps and looking for any thing of military importance this way that they may need to have for doing away with their being able to capture the town anyway. And so we were going through there, and my buddy and I was splitting up this way. We were going into the submarine pens, and in those submarine pens, why they had the Germans were actually taking their submarines underground all the way into the harbor and landing the submarine under the city. And so you never knew anything ship was coming around that way. But anyway, it was our job after they took Brest, or was in the process of taking it, it was about ready to fall, why we would be getting into the submarine pens and looking for information pertaining to them. And we had this one job that my buddy and I, this lieutenant, or Egan was my buddy, and he and I had the one jeep assigned to us with the counterintelligence, and so we got into this place where it was all on the ground and black and candle light and so on like this way. It was very eerie. That was one of the most scary times that I've had in my time there, because we would go looking for the thing, and then going in from the tunnels into a room where they would be either sleeping or doing intelligence work this way. And we had to watch these because all of the booby traps would be underneath the duck boards and stuff of that order. But we decided we were going to split up because there was so many side trails this way, and which was a no-no, but we did it anyway, and you never split up. You always go with a buddy, but here we went against it. And I suppose that's the reason that I was just a little private and never made anything, because I never did file orders right, I guess. But anyway, we're going through there, and this split up. I came into this room with a big desks and beds and cots and all this and that around there. You could say it looked like about a squad of men that was in there, and the lamps were still burning, and yet you think just any minute here's the German going to come out, but he never, nothing ever showed it. And so I went around out of this one the pathway, I guess it's the tunnel, with leading on into some more rooms this way. And as I would step into this room this way, I flashed my flashlight, and the dumb thing went out. I stepped back, and I flashed my light again and worked it, and it finally made contact again. And I stepped back into the room, and the light went out again. And I yelled, and I said, "Hey, is that you? Hey, Red, step over. Is that you, man, back in here?" No noise. And I said, "Whoever is in there, speak up." And no answer or nothing. And I finally come in, and I says, "Well, I'm coming in a firing." I said, "If you're there," and this time, and so I jumped into the room this way, flashed my light, and sure enough, the damn light went out again, and I just opened up with the little burp gun I had, and used that and just sprayed that whole room back there where I heard the noise coming from, and then stepped back and still I could hear a little bit of noise carrying on, whether it was from rubble that I had nicked off to the walls, or whether it was from troops trying to get out of it or whatnot. And then, of course, that firing of the gun brought some more soldiers in there, and then, of course, from there we went looking around, and here they found out the source of what all the trouble was. It was a great big cat that the Germans had left behind, and it was scared to death this way. And of course, I didn't see it. All I could do was hear it. Anyway, I got that cat, but that was probably one of the most scary interludes that I had during my whole time that way. Having what they call a spit bath, which was taking a helmet, you know, and you're washing yourself, whatnot, like this. And then this one thing come along, and a sniper opened up, and he shot a hole in my helmet. Was washing myself, but he shot a hole in my helmet. He missed me. It's incidents, you know.
Yeah.
So see, after we got through with France, in Brest, I mean, then we spearheaded down along the patrol and down at the St. Malo, and that's where the big artillery barrage was, where all the planes that came, thousands and thousands of our planes came over and artillery bombed it. And when the Germans came out of there, they were just absolutely shell-shocked. They didn't know where they were or anything. Well, at that point is when Patton, we were assigned to Patton, and we were scheduled to spearhead all the way across France. So that's when Patton says, give me food, give me ammunition and gasoline for my tanks, and the hell with the food. And that's what we did. We just all the way across, started going across France. And that's why I say one of our service ribbons is for Central France. We were doing all these bridges and Rhine River Crossing and whatnot this way, and picking up mines and laying them. But anyway, it went all the way up to the in Belgium, and then they stopped Patton then, and we then turned and went into the Ardennes Forest, and at the Ardennes Forest we were starting to build. We were in a sawmill there at one time, and we were sawing logs and all this stuff, and making these logs and stuff for the pontoon Bailey bridges that we were going to use later on, which of course we didn't know that. And that's where we went along there, and at that particular time, that's when the Germans developed the Battle of the Bulge, and they spearheaded across there, and that's when we got caught behind enemy lines there. Where our orders was there to stop, to save this bridge at all costs, and so we had the bridge at Stavelot had in mind and everything, and leaving the infantry and whatnot come across the bridge this way. But then basically most of the infantry was across the bridge, and then we mined it all up, and we had no tanks or anything like that. We were just a regular infantry-like outfit, and we had flamethrowers and that type of thing, but that's about all. And that's when the Battle of the Bulge started that way, and at that particular point, why, I was in charge of a machine gun runner, and what I would do is checking all the machine gun posts to see that they had enough ammunition or any problems they were having. And I was going along there, well, I went to the first two, and then they got to the third one, and here's the machine gun there and nobody there. No, and then I went to the third one, and that's already going. There are no soldiers there. So then I went back, report back into the headquarters, and the headquarters was gone. So I'm the only one in the town there. We ran across, and we finally ran across 7 men that was left in the town. Their outfit had pulled out. And when they pulled out of the town, why, we in turn anyways, that's a mess. When they pulled out of town that way, where we were staying, why our squad had stayed in a place, it was a Catholic or a priest's home, and he was not protecting us, but covering and whatnot, and he was telling us about when the Germans were coming through. But anyway, it turned out there was 3 to 5, 6 of us all together that was in the town here, and we didn't know what to do. No American troops, and here's the guns coming off and whatnot this way, and we could hear the tanks approaching the other side of town. We could hear them coming, and so I told them, I says, "What you guys gonna do?" And you had to remember now, there in the outfit that we had, I was a corporal, and I had another man in there was a corporal, and that's the highest rank that was with us left. So it meant each of us corporals was to give any thing that pertaining to safety and what are helpful for the American troops this way. And I told him, I says, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go down in the sewer, stay here until it gets dark, and then go up and up over the railroad and into the woods, gardens, that way. And they says, well, we're not going to do that. I don't want to do that, because at least if you're going along the road, you can get off the road this way if you see somebody coming. And then I said, yeah, but you're going to be drawing fire all the time. I said, I'll tell you what, anybody that wants to go with me, I'm going in the sewer, and I'm going to go up there in the top. The other ones go the other way. So the other ones went, there was just me and another man went my way. The other ones, they went up along the road there. Well, anyway, they never made it. They got captured, but my man and I, we went up over the top of it was snow ground, and we were crawling through woods, and the timber and stuff, and Jay was just, you'd be a German standing guard, and you'd work back around a bit. Anyway, I worked that thing out for all night long, and got morning, and we came across to another little crossroad there, and we could see no footprints of anything. Everything was still covered with snow. And about that particular time, I saw at this cabin or home, saw somebody come out from the house, and he went to a wood pile, and then they took a bunch of wood, and you could see where the smoke started, so he was starting a fire. And so pretty soon he come back out and got some more, and then we yelled at him, and he looked and he motioned like this to come on in. Well, then we scattered, right away, because we didn't know whether they was all full of Germans. And anyway, this man then came out with his wife, and he's pointing in our direction like this and talking while we're way over inside this way, and approached him. But anyway, he introduced himself and whatnot, and they were an elderly couple. And here we asked him about if the Germans was coming through, and we could speak a little bit of German, but enough to make known. And here it turned out that they said that the patrols were going through now and then, but he said, I asked him which way the German troops were, and he pointed this direction, and I knew it was right, because that's where the buzz bombs were going across, to shooting it up over to England that way. So we know that we was going the right direction to the way the buzz bombs were going. But anyway, the man took us in, and he made us some coffee, and he had a piece of loaf of bread there, And that dark, real dark bread we had, oh, it was awful, but boy, was we hungry. Because it had been 3 days before we had any food, saying, and our water canteen was frozen. But anyway, he did that, and we thanked him and moved on. And then we got out of these woods, and it was out into an open and whatnot. And I said to Egan, I said, Norman, Norm was this guy's name this time. I said, Norm, remember? I said, see this soldiers there? And he said, yeah. And I said, we're in trouble. He said, what do you mean we're in trouble? Is it Americans, aren't they? Yeah, but they didn't know we are Americans? He said, because they're taking all the wearing German equipment and tanks and jeeps and stuff. And he said, even carrying their ammunition, the rifle away. And the way we could tell that they were Germans was the way they were carrying their rifles. And we would carry them up like this, and then they wouldn't. So we said, those are not, whether they're not American or whatnot. And here these guys were carrying it the right way. So we knew that they were American, but how did they know that we were American? And so I said, Norm, what we're going to do is just lay down, let the guys come. And they did. They finally, a whole bunch came through, and we raised up with our hands up a bunch, and claiming all types of American expressions to verify that we were Americans. And anyway, they finally an officer came along and ordered us back, and we went into with a jeep and back to their headquarters. And then I would like to say at that particular time there was the most abundant artillery barrage open up, and I'd like to think that was because we had showed them where the tanks and stuff were in the forest there. But we didn't know. We never did know. But anyway, our outfit finally we got to them, and they were 30 miles away.
Life experience, like what you've learned the most, or it's changed you the most positively, as far as an experience or something you've learned that's kind of stuck with you through these years?
Well, of course, there was daily little things that would happen this way, but as they would turn out, it'd be from a little thing to turn into something pretty big. And then another time where they had a river to cross, and the troops there, they said, it's suicide to go across that river because they're on the other side. And he says, if I go, you go. And so our officer went out across there, and they followed him. And but it was incidents like that happened, but it's too numerous because it's just day by day occurrences. And we had one place we liberated a Boy Scouts or camp, but it was German. We liberated them. They was in boot camp that way, and the Germans were raising these boys from childhood for what they call the super race. That was the young boys who was being raised for that. The mothers would have the child, and then the child would be turned right over to the state, and they'd never see the baby again.
How did you find out that the war was over?
Truthfully, I don't know.
You don't remember?
I mean, you'd heard the people yelling around it was over, but I can't tell you how I don't know.
Yeah.
You just heard everybody yelling all around, that it's over, and so you assume it was over,
Yeah.
Somebody bigger than you had found out that it was done.
So, after the fact, when you're back in the United States, how did you adapt back to civilian life again? As far as day-to-day, kind of back to the norm,
Well, see, after I got back here I took a job, and I was working in a factory, a China factory, and whatnot this way until my orders came through for the GI Bill, and I'd signed up for the GI Bill to go back to this art school, and then of course after they accepted me on that, well, as I say, it was pretty well easy as far as being indoctrinated for the civilian life. This because you was doing all your homework and things of that order. So it wasn't very hard for me. Right as soon as we got into the German territory, Rhine River, after the Rhine River Crossing there, we had spearheading going through towns in this way. And this one town we came into was called Verdun, and it was a typical German town, but a farm town. And when we were going through, they had orders for all of us men to wear gas masks, because this town is where they developed poison gas for the Germans this way. And we had no gas masks anymore. We had thrown them away because they just but they took a chance, and they never did let any gas go. But after we got out to the edge of the town, we was checking the place for booby traps and snipers mostly and stuff like that. And here this one big straw stack there, and in the base of the straw stack, you could see where somebody had been digging in it. And we walked up there and we looked our guns around, rifles around, and finally you could see there was some type of a box. We thought, well, it might have been a box of cartridges or ammunition. Searched to see for booby traps around this way, and checked it all around, and it had nothing attached to the box. So when we thought, well, maybe it was in the box or something, and so we working the knife around this way and picked up nothing, opened it up, and here was this beautiful accordion. And the guy says, "What are you going to do?" And I said, well, so he says, "See if it plays any good, figure what." So I took it out and played a couple tunes with the thing. Boy, it was a beauty. It was a Honer, ivory keys, but anyway, and the guy says, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "Boy, I sure love to keep that, but I says, I can't go carrying an accordion around with all the powerful and heavy, a burp gun and stuff." And this truck driver was in our squad truck driver. He said, "John," he said, "you let me take care of that accordion." He said, "Wherever this truck is, that accordion will be there." And that's the way it worked. Just no matter where we stopped, the accordion would be right there. And so I brought that, finally brought it back, but I got to play in a band over there after the war was over, and that was another outfit we played for, but a swing band. I got him with the accordion, got into a 13-piece swing band. That's all we did was play for the troops. Beautiful. That was the best time of my life right there. Beautiful. And then, as I say, and as the most entertaining that I would have would probably be when I was accepted within this swing band, and they had 13 pieces, and then from there they pulled me out of the combat engineers. I was still attached to them, but all we do was play for the servicemen.
And where was that at?
Brussels, Belgium.
Belgium.
Right when the breakthrough at St. Lo, and prior to that, we were working up to it this way. I was on road guard, and they were out there fixing up the roads so the tanks and the trucks could go through the thing. And I was on road guard, slowing them down and detouring them and whatnot this way. And this Jeep comes up the road this way, and I back like this, you know, and stopped him. And then finally I pulled up along, turned around and go down. And here I looked at his Jeep, and there's got General's flag on the Jeep, and here it was Patton. It was Patton's Jeep that I had stopped on the truck. And he says, "What's your name, soldier?" Told him and whatnot. And boy, he had me scared to death, you know. And here I stopped him in Jeep, and he said, "What are you doing up ahead?" And I told him, and I said, they had bombs last night, and they were filling up the holes of the bombs so the truck could get through. And he said, "What's your outfit?" And I named it to him and whatnot. And I said, "Do you mean to tell me, you know, that this is all we're going to be doing is filling holes like this?" And he said, "What's your outfit again?" And he said, "Believe me, you're not going to be there very much longer." Mm-hmm. And boy, that's when we attached with them and spearheaded all the way across on a road stop right there with a Jeep. That was one of the things. In fact, they had the pictures of the soldiers there that was stopped with the general, because it didn't take long for everybody to. But as far as I say, the most memorable thing, as I say, it probably be my introduction to Sadie. It was probably one of my most highlights. And they allowed us to have another pass, furlough, if you had any relatives and whatnot in the United Kingdom. So I told a buddy of mine, I said, "Do you mind? Would you like to go with me if I can pull the deal to go to England?" And I said, "Because here's my girlfriend from England there," and I said she's said that to come on over, they would be happy and everything, and she could stay with her grandfather who was over there. And so I applied with the captain, and he says, "Well, what's their name?" And I told him, "Hill." And he says, "And you got a name like Necina?" He said, "Don't hand me this stuff." He said, and I said, "Well, that's on my grandmother's side." I said, "That's Hill that way." And so, but he said, "Now you're going to have to take a buddy, because you always had to have a buddy with you." And he said, "If you go, you're going to have a buddy stay with you all the time too." And so I asked this fella, I said, "Would you want to go with me?" He's my buddy at the time. And he said, "Yeah, if you can swing it, go through." Well, it turned out that's the man that married my wife's sister. That went too long. But anyway, they went across there. We got the furlough and went over there, and he's the grandfather showing us all around the town and whatnot. And he said, and by the way, he said, over there is where Sadie's girlfriend lives or works. "Would you want to go see her?" I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "I'm supposed to stop and talk to her." So we went into the store and introduced it to us. And when I saw Sadie at the time, my heart just about stopped. I said to myself, "That girl's going to be my wife someday." And so, well, it's been my wife now for 70 years. So it turned out pretty good.